News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Alan Gilbreth with darkhookmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, and today's the big one. Happy Public Radio Broadcasting Day.
Really?
Yes!
It's our day.
Wow. Okay. Do we? Are we worth celebration, Alan? Or
I think we certainly are.
Okay. Well, you know, radio is its own medium. I mean, it is unique. Let's face it. So, and we're still kicking and still going. So, all right, that'll be a good one, Max. It's public, well, I guess that's just radio broadcast.
PRBD.
PRBD. Okay. Not international. I always like to clarify. This is just our good old American holiday.
It's just kind of it's a topic, not necessarily something that's bound by any country.
Okay, cool. All right, well, that'll be a good one. So that's on the table right there. So if you've got any comments or questions about your radio product that you're hearing on the air today, maybe we don't want to get, maybe you better just send us a text on that one. Get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch your radio show. How about that? I mean, they didn't do that back in the day.
Sounds kind of like a contradiction.
It sort of does. You can do that in two ways. You can go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. It's the same feed. You'll see the same video. You'll see 2/3 of the show up there. And also, while you're on social media, scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. I've already made a couple of posts. I posted our must-have item of the week, which I was just looking at it. It's pretty beat up. It's a good lesson of not leaving things made of steel where they get wet.
Out in the weather?
Yeah. I don't know. They still work, but it's well used.
Yes, they do.
And in addition to that, we have the topic of our great moments in building history, which Max suggested this week. Big surprise. The Tokyo Skytree. Pretty interesting. This is you look at the skyline of Tokyo, and this thing just dwarfs everything else around.
And there's a giant hypodermic needle right in the middle.
And I chose it precisely because of the holiday.
Yeah, it's good timing, Max. So we're going to discuss that. It's a pretty interesting construction. So, also, we're going to call this, I don't know, we haven't done one of these segments in a while. Where do your building materials come from? This is cool.
Yeah.
Alan's got something that hopefully is the future. This, for one thing, is going to make construction simpler and it involves recycling. It involves Lego in a way. It's pretty cool. Yep. So it's a neat development in the world of construction. Critter Wars. This one is interesting. This little guy goes under the radar pretty often. Closet moths.
Yes.
I don't know what the distinction is between a closet moth and because I like moths. I think they're cool little guys, but I don't.
This is one actual particular variety that might be buzzing around your house right now.
Yeah, but the teaser on this was they eat more than clothes.
Yes, they do.
So the battle will ensue, but before we get to that, I think the big topic of the day is going to be cold weather. I mean, the cold weather is coming. It behooves us to talk about the different dynamics at play. We're always talking about how your house is expanding and contracting. How we sure don't want any pipe water lines expanding. In this situation,
right.
We're gonna dive deep into that. Before we get to any of that though, Max, I'm very curious. You told me about something off the air. You said you bought a pair of shoelaces, which, whoop-de-doo. How exciting could that be? But they cost you $27.
They're called tactical shoelaces. Or I call them tactical shoelaces, but they're actually like survivalist shoelaces.
All right, explain.
I'm not going to name the brand, but this particular product, these tactical shoelaces, well, they're very special. Not only are they made out of 550 paracord, which is a nice durable paracord.
Goodness gracious.
But if you open up the little metal aglets at the end of at the tips of the shoelaces, you will see not only a little ferrule for igniting a fire, but you will also find a length of tinder and a length of fishing line inside. And so if the apocalypse ever comes, you laugh now, but I'll be the one who's ready.
You know what's going to happen. Max said it exactly. The end is going to come. The only people left are going to be all of our SCA friends, those and people like Max and with their tactical shoelaces and everything else. So, well, Max, you can weaponize anything, right?
I want to weaponize everything. I want everything that I own to have a certain level of intent breathed into it.
What's going to happen is he's actually going to get his feet tangled up and accidentally ignite his socks.
That's why I got the 54 inches.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good for you, Max. I just, I don't know that I've ever paid $27 for a pair of shoelaces.
Ooh, I don't pay $27 for a pair of shoes.
Yeah, no kidding. But Max, if you see Max out, not many, if you see Max out in the wild, you would just say, well, this looks like a peaceful, nice,
unassuming
guy, very, very nice, easygoing. But little would you know that this guy could, remove your heart with one flick of his tactical pen or something. So, all right, well, good for you, Max. I enjoy those tactical shoelaces. So, but Allan, let's shift gears. The cold weather is on the way.
Yep. Winter is about to arrive for the lovely Mid-South.
We got a whole checklist. We've been here before. I don't remember a lot of these issues growing up in Chicago, only because it was built into the infrastructure. You knew it was going to be cold. We live in a part of the country where we're sort of in that middle thing. I mean, we don't really get much of a winter, which probably accounts for why we don't have snow plows and things, because why would you spend money on stuff like that? But when it comes, man, we have to discuss it. So I guess I got a whole checklist. I don't know where you want to begin, but I feel like we got to get ready and just get everybody thinking, about protecting their home when the cold snap gets here.
I start at the exact same place every single time, and is that, do you have the tool to turn off your water?
Okay, talk to me. Yeah.
Well, very simple. For some of us in older neighborhoods, it's the old, what we used to call a church key or a water key, which is nothing more than a stick, a crossbar, and a little U-shaped cup at the bottom that fit over the fitting.
Yep.
And that way you could turn off your water in the event of a broken pipe or something like that. Or if you're not going to be home during the cold snap.
Yeah.
Winterize your home. Go ahead and turn off the water, open up the spigot in the bathtub or something, and get the water out of the lines, flush the toilets. Now you are not worried about a pipe breaking while you're off visiting relatives.
It's funny you say that, because that was on my checklist too, and this will be a good tease, because when we come back from the break, this had to do with what happens to your hot water tank when you do something like that.
Yep.
And people do travel. I mean, people go out of town, and if you go out of town during this critical juncture, you better make sure your house is winterized. You don't want to come home to a flood.
Yeah.
So we've got a few preventative measures, and we've got a lot more to discuss with the cold weather on the way. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Hi there. Is there a project you're working on? I know more than you. All right.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
That guy is just, I don't know. Ron Swanson just is the big know-it-all. One day, Ron Swanson is going to get his comeuppance. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios.
That sounds like something to put on a T-shirt.
Yeah, he needs to be humbled. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show. There's two ways to do that. You can use the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And while you're on social media, scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the posts we've made over there, like the page, and share the page. So off the air, never mind. We're kicking off the show today. We have a lot on the table, so it's not going to just be this, but the cold weather is coming, and we feel like it's always a good reminder to kind of to go over protecting your home, especially if you're going to be traveling and maybe going to be gone during the cold snap that's supposed to be coming after the weekend. Even though it was pretty nippy out yesterday with that wind. That wind, it got pretty.
No, it started out very, very nice. We had a lovely, lovely morning, great afternoon, and then the clouds and everything started moving in and the wind started picking up, and you went, oh, all right, winter's about to arrive.
Right. So the first thing, obviously, is we talk about dripping the faucets, and don't be stingy with that. If it's cold, because next week I think it's going to be in the single digits. When you go to bed, open the cabinet. If you have a bathroom cabinet under your sink, or if you have, with the kitchen cabinet, open the door. Make sure it's getting some warm air in there, and then let them drip, and let them drip pretty well, both the hot and the cold. And it's always tricky if you have one of those single faucet handles, like finding that exact sweet spot that lets the same amount of hot and cold out. But Allan, right before break, you had mentioned something, and I'm just trying to get clarification on this. We talked about, let's just suppose you're going out of town. I don't know, for a week or something during this period.
I'm thinking a couple of days.
Okay, well, I don't know. But, you said the one thing that is important, and I totally agree, is you have to know how to turn the water off.
Yes.
Now, some people are lucky. They have a main cutoff. I know a lot of people in their laundry room, there is a main valve. You just turn the valve, and that cuts all the water off in your house,
That
which
is
great.
absolutely luxury.
If you have that, if you don't, you need to know where your water meter is by the street. Right. I would think most people do. Now if you're in an apartment or something, I don't know. That part, I don't know. I don't know.
You might want to ask, because a lot of apartment complexes have shutoffs per level.
I would hope so, but
and that way, in the event something did happen, and folks, we don't want anything to happen to you, but really, you should know how to stop things from getting more damaging.
Yeah, you're talking about an annoyance with a little water getting in your floor versus like catastrophic damage by not knowing how to turn your water off.
Well, I go back to spring and summer, when we've had a lot of rain and we're getting some wind, and maybe that tree starts leaning or falls over, and it happened to grab, your water line.
Oh, yeah.
And now you got water spraying all over the front yard. So it's not just a winter thing. So knowing where the water key or the water tool is, or if you're lucky enough to have a water shutoff in your home, kind of make sure everybody knows how to use it.
Yeah, and I mean everybody. I don't care if you're 6-year-old. They need to know how to turn
everybody
the water
needs to know how to turn this off in the event of an emergency.
Okay, so the question I had, I don't want to get too buried in the weeds here, but I am curious. If you turn off the water to your street because you're leaving town or something like that, you still need to, I'm assuming you still need to turn the faucets on to drain out whatever water is in the lines, right?
Right.
Okay, but now we also have hot water tanks. What happens to that? So do you just kind of turn the hot water on, relieve the pressure, get whatever's in there, and then just close it again? So, because that hot water tank will stay warm. I mean, obviously it's being heated
exactly.
inside. So.
It a lot just depends on how long you're going to be gone. If you're gonna truly winterize the hot water tank, it does need to be drained.
Okay. But then you got to turn everything off.
But you need to turn off the power to it. Mm-hmm. And you can usually do that at your breaker box.
Well, and if you have gas, because our hot water tank's nice.
If you have
gas,
you have a shut off.
Yeah, well, we have gas, and when there's a power outage, we still have hot water, which is nice. So, but okay. So it's just something to think about. Like we said, don't play games with that, because a hot water tank, when you're messing around with it, you don't know what you're doing. You could burn out the heating coil. You could fill your house with gas. You
depending upon the brand you have, you can go online and easily just go, I have brand X. Mm-hmm. How do I winterize?
Yeah.
And every single manufacturer has a list of simple steps, usually 3 to 5 things you need to do to make sure a hot water tank is winterized if you're not going to be there for a few,
Yeah.
And I would say an extended period of time. I don't think I would go through this if you're going to be gone overnight. But if you're going to be gone for a week or two, you've had that great international vacation planned.
Right.
Let's not come back from the Caribbean to find a flooded house.
Exactly. Okay, so now let's just suppose your water line did freeze, okay?
Okay.
Defrosting a hot water line. For one thing, keep in mind, now I'll never forget, because Christmas of 2022, I literally spent in my attic fixing a busted water line. We all remember the cold snap and everybody, whatever. But the thing about it is, we had a frozen kitchen line, and everything was hunky-dory until I finally defrosted the line, and that's when
Water went
That's when the
everywhere.
water came out, which is interesting. You don't think about it. It's like, oh, okay, well, you think I defrosted the line, so the problem's been solved. But no, that's why you need a couple people around the house stationed, ready to go, and turn everything off, turn the TV off, and start listening for drips or that
the
hissing
infamous
sound.
hiss. Yes.
Yeah, but what do you like to do to defrost? I mean, I hate to say it, I just use basically a blow dryer under the sink, under like the kitchen sink or wherever it's doing. It's not the easiest thing to do, but I mean,
well, hopefully now anybody doing new construction or getting some work done, look into PEX tubing.
talk to me.
The PEX. It's actually designed to be burst resistant.
Talking about that plastic, it looks like a clear plastic.
It looks like a plastic line, but if you look in the end of it, the wall on this thing is amazingly thick, and it has cross fibering. So it is really, I'm not going to say it won't freeze and break, but it is designed for areas with much more cold than the Mid-South. So, what a great idea if you're doing some work or having some upgrades done. Really look into that and ask some questions.
It's funny you say that because literally, I told you, if you've been listening to Tool Talk for a while, I'm in the middle of building a laundry room for the a couple in Midtown. Well, I was talking to the plumber because we had the plumber come out and we opened up the wall and he's doing he put that PEX, what is it?
Yeah, PEX.
He put the PEX in there, and I was asking him about that. I said because when you look at it, you're like, this looks like the flimsiest, like whatever. You can move it with your hand. It looks like it's flexible. I'm like, how is this handling all the water pressure? Well, that's exactly why, because of that flexibility, right?
It is.
And it's much, and he explained the same thing. He said, yeah, this thing is meant to handle expansion without, it's not going to, within reason, but.
Right. It's not going to expand infinitely, but it is definitely much more expandable than a thin piece of copper.
I wonder if people are, retrofitting their kitchens and things like that with that too, because it doesn't look expensive. I don't know. I don't know what it would cost to switch that up.
Comparably priced. You're not getting off the hook for, the plumbing materials on that, but it's worth it.
Okay.
Now another little trick we did of one of the properties I was working on was getting water run from the city for the very first time.
Okay.
And not only did we go out and have to dig the trench down the 18 inches it's supposed to be and all that in this part of the country, the further north you go, the deeper that pipe has to be.
The frost line, we call it.
You got to go to the frost line. You got to keep that water from freezing. I think in Alaska it's like 10 feet.
No kidding, man. Okay.
Here it's, anything.
A couple feet will do you.
Yeah, a couple of feet will do you. And so we got it down there. And while we had it open, I said, all right, now let's go ahead and winterize the pipes before they go under.
Yeah.
So we added the extra layer of protection of putting a extra layer of pipe wrap designed to be on underground pipes.
May as well. Yeah.
We had it there. It was open, and everybody's going, "Why do you need this? We're not up in New York." And I'm like, "You never know."
Yeah.
And right now, I'm really happy we did that.
Oh, yeah. It gives you a sense of peace of mind. I do got another question. I've never used this product, so I'm speaking out of total ignorance. What about heat tape? We've heard about this electrical tape.
Oh, yeah.
It's a tape that wraps around pipes.
Yes.
And you see this sometimes in attics where there's like a lot of exposed pipe. And you plug it in. It literally has a plug on the end, and it supposedly gently warms the pipe, right?
It works exactly like a hot water blanket.
Like
an
electric blanket for your pipes.
Yeah, it's the little things that would warm up some hot water for you or would keep it gently done. But it is just a warming tape wrapped around the pipe that keeps it from freezing.
It's not a bad idea. It seems to me like
I've used them in many, many, many buildings over the years.
Yeah, so that's probably a good thing to have. It's probably sold out at the big box store at the moment, but it's maybe something to order off of, order online and just have
If you have exposed pipes, you need to get them wrapped. You need to get them insulated. And if you've got the ability to use something like a warm wrap, do it.
And I'm thinking too, just if you've got ongoing problems with your water lines freezing, it's not going to be long before at some point they burst.
They will.
They'll burst, man. They're going to weaken every time. So we've got a few more cold weather tips, and then we've got a lot of other fun things to get to, especially our critter wars with closet moths.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Pay the price for your lack of vision.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Well, you'll pay the price if you don't have if you have the lack of vision to not let your water pipes drip during this cold snap coming up. He's not wrong about that, Max. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show. You can watch the show on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we invite you to check out the post that we've made over on the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. And be sure to like the page and share the page. So join the Tool Talk Radio community for sure. We've been talking, obviously, we got the cold coming up, and we're trying to do our duty by just, reminding people. And I think a lot of people know this, but, we're constantly having, I'm meeting a lot of people these days that have moved here from the West Coast. A lot of Californians are moving to Memphis. A lot of people that haven't lived in this kind of environment. It's kind of like, well, I moved to Memphis because it's a mild climate. Well, it sort of is, but when we get these cold snaps, you got to be ready for it. So maybe this is just good information for that. We've been talking about your water lines. Everybody in the house needs to know how to turn the water line on. That is just as important as knowing where the fire extinguishers are, or the your 6-year-old needs to know how to turn the water off under the toilet. Because let's face it, they're the ones that'll probably clog it up.
They're probably the one that did it. Yep.
I just had a couple more things. It's not beautiful, and I don't love that we have to do it, but I live in an older home, and our windows are not great. I mean, one day that's going to be on the budget is to replace all our windows, but they're drafty. And when we get these cold snaps, I put that clear plastic up. And I just wanted to say something. I love the plastic. It's if you buy it, you in a pinch, I suppose you could even grab that plastic sheeting that you use in the paint section. It's not beautiful and it's cloudy, so it's gonna. But I am not a fan of the tape that it comes with. It comes with 2-sided tape, and I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. So if you're putting up plastic, folks, I would just recommend, for one thing, this sounds like common sense, but you got to think about every vulnerable spot. So like what I do on our window, we have a big window in our living room, and I first of all clean the wood trim around it. I make sure there's no dust or dirt or anything, and then I use that clear packing tape to paint around, and then I make sure every little section is completely taped. And it's funny, as soon as you get that last piece of tape on, it sort of slowly poofs out like it almost looks like something from NASA or whatever. I don't know, like a spacesuit filling up. But you can see the air pressure, and you're like, well, this is all the cold air that's been slowly creeping into our house, and we're keeping it out. And it makes a difference. Have you ever used that stuff? Or?
Well, I have. I usually use the painter's tape around it because it's only going to be up for a few days.
Well, ours stays up for a couple. I mean, because once it's up, we're like, okay, we'll take it down in February. Right.
It depends it depends upon the event and how long you want it to be up. But yeah, I've used the plastic plenty of times. The biggest thing is airflow.
Right.
Yeah. The biggest thing is just, can you stop that air from flowing? Mm-hmm. And one thing I actually found on a home this past week was where their air ducts came up and went into the building, there was a lot of empty space around those air ducts.
Sure.
And I went and got myself some, little fiberglass and stuffed it all up in there and stopped all the way around it. Didn't put any pressure on the tubes themselves, left those nice and intact, but filled in the gaps. And the difference it made was shocking.
It is.
The floors were so much warmer. It just because there wasn't that airflow happening underneath that floor space.
Yeah. Well, if you were by your back door and you had the back door cracked open even a little bit, you would notice it, and you're going to go obviously because it's the same effect. It's just we're not seeing it. If you have a gap by your baseboard, or if you have it like you said, or something by the window, it adds up, and then when you stop that, it's and it saves you money and it makes your house more comfortable.
Well, and for those of you who have homes with elevated floors, you've got a crawl space underneath.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure that your crawl space door, your access point, make sure that thing is in good shape.
I was just about to ask about that, like any air that comes through the floors and everything, but you beat me to the chase.
Yeah, or attic doors. I mean, some attic doors are not, they're pretty drafty too.
Well, and I'm like, the door that I usually see going under the house is usually in pretty terrible shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nobody bothers with it. Nobody's looked at it. The cat's been going through it for 5 years. But if you will get that thing cleaned up and in good shape, sealed up, it will make a huge difference to the airflow you're going to get under the house.
One other thing, one last thing about this plastic though, I will say, don't by all means don't use duct tape, and don't use the white paint, the white, what do we call it, masking tape, because if that's up for a month or so, that residue is really hard to get off, man, and it's ugly. Who wants to look at it? I like the clear packing tape myself. It seems to come off fairly intact when so anyway, but I don't know. There's more, I'm sure, but please just folks. Oh, one other thing. I did have a question about this. So we talk about the grid. Now, I know people from California have heard about this, rolling blackouts, because they have it on the opposite end of the spectrum when there's hot day. Well, do we have any of that? Like, I feel like if it's, let's suppose it's 1 degree outside and the grid is probably going to be strained, I feel like it's a better idea to maybe turn off any lights that you're not using, or don't be running your washing machine or what. Does that affect us out here, the grid, as far as overuse with electrical?
The last time, I know that we have actually had in the past we've had a kind of a, not so much a blackout, but just kind of a turned down.
Right.
But I think that was only during a summer with the air conditioners.
Yeah, I know if it's 100 degrees out, they talk about not using, during the peak hours and stuff.
But of course, not wasting electricity, to sound like a commercial from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
Not wasting electricity is always a good idea. So if you don't need to leave it on, turn it off.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've done our duty. We don't want to make the whole show about this, but I mean, it is about to get cold.
It is.
Speaking of speaking of getting cold, I wonder what this man's up to right now. Our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. Probably a lot of people aren't thinking about their air conditioner at the moment.
Thinking about that heater, though.
Yeah. So but regardless, it's a good idea to think about both throughout the year, because when we had Larry on a week ago, we were talking about winterizing your AC unit, which you got to be careful with that. We're not going to rehash that, but you got to think about it is really the most finely tuned and calibrated instrument in your entire home. It is sort of the nerve center of your home. When it's functioning properly, boy, is it makes your house comfortable. When you've got the Remy Halo clean air system, you're getting clean air. When you have your ducts clean, you really want it functioning well. It improves the health of your home too when you have humidity properly regulated, because humidity, how often do we talk about that? So there's nobody better than the good people at Brown Refrigeration. They've been around forever. I think we're going on close to 40-something years of Brown Refrigeration with Larry Brown at the helm. They always are up on the latest technology. They give you good, fair, honest advice, and they understand your system inside and out. It's a good idea to get them out there once or twice a year to give your system a little tune-up, which usually is just a lot of preventative maintenance. It's very minimal. Let them get in there once a year and clean the air ducts out. And then if it's time to replace your unit, I mean, these units are so energy efficient these days, and they're so well functioning that it's going to eventually pay for itself with how much lower your utility bills are. Great people over there. We love Brown Refrigeration. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881 or go to their website, brownref.com. All right, Max, this is going to be an interesting one, I think.
That's the most foul, cruel, and bad-tempered rodent you ever set eyes on.
I just wanted a hug.
Oh, rats in the kitchen, just like that delightful movie I taped in the theater.
Okay, when I think of Critter Wars and our battles with the animal kingdom, in preserving our home, this didn't come to the top of my mind, but I think it's an interesting one, Alan. So, closet moths?
Yes.
And I didn't know there was different breeds of these things. So,
Well, the common clothes moth.
Okay.
This is not your big lunar butterfly thing sitting outside the window.
The majestic moth.
This
Because I like
isn't-
moths. Moths are cool.
Yeah, moths are cool. They show up on the outside glass. You see them. They're all different sizes, shapes, and colors. This is the little guy that you're going to see in your house this week.
Why?
You're
They
gonna be
hunkering in, trying to...
Well, they come inside with us all the time, and these are those little ones. They're about between 1/4 of an inch and 1/2 an inch long, and they're usually I always say they're kind of lint colored.
I was going to say they're a
that
lighter color, right? Yeah.
That kind of light, dusty, very pale brown color, more or less. And you usually see them in the quiet of the evening. You'll see one fly by and you'll swat it, or the cat will get it, and you don't think anything of it. But guess what you're going to see tomorrow night?
What's that?
Another one.
Oh, okay. So
And then
they
another
breed
one.
quickly.
And another one. And the thing is that their caterpillars can eat almost anything from your clothes. So if you've got, we used to talk about Granny's attic, and they used to hang the cedar.
Well, I
in there.
wondered, because cedar is... and cedar's a wonderful smell.
Oh, it is.
I love a cedar. Cedar's just a good smell to have in your home anyway. It's funny that the moths don't like that.
No, they're
wonder
not a big
why.
fan of that.
Yeah.
It really kind of messes with them. So, but their little caterpillars will eat holes in your clothing.
Yeah.
They'll chew through that. But they will also get somewhere in that forgotten back corner of your pantry.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to keep seeing them off every so often. And it's going to be because the corner edge of a chocolate bar fell behind something somewhere and they found it. Or there's an old box of cereal back there someplace that's not quite sealed up.
Right.
And you're going to get the clothes moth. And they're just insidious. They will find something you have no idea even exists, and that will become ground zero for a persistent and ongoing infestation.
Okay, you made me think of something because, cotton is a plant for all intents and purposes. I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe cotton, for all I know, is edible on some degree
is to
for
them.
human. Okay, well, that makes sense. But what about polyester? Do they eat our polyester clothing, or are they only eating like wool and cotton and the natural fibers?
Cotton, your lovely old antique furs that can never be replaced, and
Organic.
anything organic. Yes.
Okay, but they eat food too. I never thought of that. I always think of, obviously, you got to keep your food sealed up, but I always think you'd be at risk of ants or roaches
ants
or
or something. But
yeah.
something that an ant wouldn't be attracted to would be like a cereal grain.
Okay.
Or something that's very dry and has no sugar content. Well, to a clothes moth, hey, that's like chewing through a T-shirt.
Okay. All right.
And the little devils can get anywhere.
Well, okay. And so they're gonna camp out at any part of your house. Do they need a water source? Do they, like
they
how
are-
ants need water and things like that? or-
So far to date, they get the moisture out of the air that they're looking for, and they will continue to live and breathe.
Okay, now that Alan's put the fear of moths into us, hopefully when we come back, he's going to tell us how to
How to get rid of
humanely get rid of them.
Yes.
I hope. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. Stay tuned, my friends. We'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
Did somebody say boom?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
That's how you get rid of the moths.
I was going to say that's the nuclear. That's the tactical option that Max would choose. So, all right. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, Alan has just told us of the menace of closet moths, that they eat more than just your clothing. You know, they're after everything. They'll eat your house down to the ground. And now that he's told us that, he's going to tell us shortly how to get rid of them. So if you want to chime in and get involved in the conversation, there's two ways to do it. You can call or text using the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. And also, it's important to mention you can send pictures to the hotline.
Oh, yes.
I don't think you can send videos. I don't know if that works. Although, if you want to go on social media, you can always send us videos at the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. And speaking of video, you can also watch the show at the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And, it's saved for the ages. If you're driving right now or if you're somewhere out and about, don't worry, you can watch it later if that's that's what floats your boat. But it's the same. I will say the audio is different because the one thing that you have to do if you watch the show is you got to sit through the commercial. Like there's sort of, isn't it just sort of dead? I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know.
Okay. So
know.
whatever. But either way, we hope you'll enjoy the show. But before the break, you were telling us that that these moths, they're pretty insidious and they get to place. So by all means, keep your food closed.
Yeah.
They still probably prefer the same temperatures though, right? They like some dark kind of whatever, and I think of closets, those are not the most,
They like living with us. They do.
They don't, do they like hot temperatures though? Or do they like, how wasps like the really hot, they want to be up there by, real heated temperatures. What are moths' ideal conditions? Because we don't want to accommodate them. So.
Well, yeah, these are your back of the closet kind of areas. They like that nice, quiet kind of,
like
out of the way. Yeah. They don't want to be obvious, but when they grow up, they have a tendency to fly around looking for new territory, new things to eat. And once again, they'll eat your wool rug. They'll eat and when I say eat, they'll put little holes. They don't, it's not like these guys are very big.
Yeah.
They're tiny. They're a tiny little bit, but it's the fact that they're constant. So, now that we've told you they're probably living with you, how do you get rid of the little darlings?
Yeah. And what if you're like me and you like moths and you don't want to just slaughter them, but...
Nah, pretty much you're gonna be guilty of a little mothicide here, Joe.
Okay. All right.
If you're worried that they've gotten into your clothes, if you're worried that some of your clothing items have been infested, you can have them dry cleaned.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's the easiest and best way to make sure that they are clean. That you don't have any of the little webbing left, no eggs, no larvae.
Can you just run your clothes through a hot dryer?
You can, if your clothes will do that. Not everybody's collectible clothing will go through the dryer.
Okay.
So,
if they're eating my Star Wars T-shirt, I'm not taking
those go into the washer, go into the dryer. That's not a problem. If they are somewhere else in the back of a pantry or something, of course, a dear friend of mine, her favorite method of moth control in an area is she has one of those electric badminton rackets.
Well, that's a lot of work. For one, it's mean, but also you're going to sit there and whack the moles.
But the biggest thing is they are nocturnal. So I noticed recently a number of companies have come out with lit bug traps. They just plug into your wall socket at night, so they're illuminated, and they have a sticky trap on the back of it, so you don't have to see what happens to them.
Okay.
And those are very effective at getting rid of adults.
What do you got, Max?
Well, on the text line, we got Angel. They said, Dawn dish soap in a spray bottle with water or electric fly swat is my choice to rid the flying demons.
All right, Angel. So spraying Dawn, what does that do? It gets their wings all.
Well, yeah,
this all sounds very primal and barbaric to me. So I thought there'd be some scientific, like a little pulsating rate thing that they don't like the sound of, or they don't like the
none of those sound
infrared solutions or anything. So
you got to clean. You got to get rid of the little guys. Got to get rid of the eggs of the dish soap and bugs. Dish soap, even in very, very dilute amounts, has a tendency to break down the oils on insects. So, for instance, ants will float. Mm-hmm. Well, unless the little oil that's protecting their body gets removed, and then they sink pretty quick.
Oh. That's interesting.
The giant American cockroach that we have here, the exterior one, the big red and brown guy that can fly.
Sure.
They're up to 2 to 3 inches long. If they're hit with that, it removes the protective oils on their body and they will drown rather easily. So a lot of the things that's where the little Dawn dish soap in a spray bottle, but it's very, very dilute. It's like a 1 to 20 or 1 to 10 mix. So it's not like you're trying to spray dish soap on a bug.
I'm just picturing Angel with her
spray bottle
racket in one hand and then the other, and the spray bottle in the other, and going to battle. But I know Angel, and she would have bought one of those electric tennis rackets, whether she had problems or not. Because
that's true.
It's just it's something she needs to have.
It's her nature.
She probably keeps it in a holster too. So, well, Angel, we appreciate the tip. So, all right, well, it's something to keep in mind, I suppose, because I would also think those are the kind of things that go under the radar. You said they're nocturnal. Yeah. You might only ever see the damage they do. You may never even see them.
You wonder why you're getting these weird little spots in your lovely wool tapestry, or part of your carpet has got a little bit of a problem, or, you're finding those little pinholes in those T-shirts that you've had from the concerts of years past. And chances are you probably have the common clothes moth in your house.
Okay. Now, these things are tiny, though, you said, right? They only grow to like about a half an inch long or
at
something?
best. Yeah, they're not huge.
What about the big moths in our house? Because sometimes you'll see a moth and you see them outside, but you might see them inside. You go to work, it was up on this one corner of the wall. You go to work, you come home, and it's still in that exact spot or whatever. What's their deal?
It's hiding. It does not want to be there. It wants to be outside.
So take it outside if you can, because moths aren't going to hurt you. Just pick it, grab it gently and throw it out.
Yeah, they came in by accident. They do not want to be in there with you because they will desiccate and die.
So you're doing them a favor if you
put them back out. Yeah.
Okay, and don't smash them, and don't let your cat eat them and torture them or something. I don't know. That's just my feel. I like moths. They're cool. To me, what's the big difference between a moth and a butterfly? We wouldn't think of squishing a butterfly, right? Allan, don't give me. Okay. I don't know, man.
I'm kind of rough on caterpillars. What can I say?
I don't know, man. We're going to have to talk. Your killer instinct. It's just like, but I'm not about to get the electric tennis racket and go to battle with butterflies or moths. But okay,
oh, you can use one on a wasp. I promise you.
Okay, yeah, it's fair game against those jerks. So, all right. Well, this is pretty cool. We got a lot to get to this next hour, but the first hour is in the can. Imagine that. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have our great moments in building history, our must-have item of the week, and where do our building materials come from?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show. You can watch the show on the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page and the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we also invite you to go over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check out the posts we've made over there and like the page and share the page. And just a reminder, it's been kind of quiet out there with this topic, but it is Max indicated what National Radio Day. What is the holiday we're celebrating today?
Radio Broadcasting Day.
Okay, well, I mean, we love radio. I don't know how much we're helping the cause, but if you've got any thoughts about that, and speaking of that, later in our Great Moments in Building History, we're going to be discussing the Tokyo Skytree. Max is the one that suggested this, and it's in all of your wheelhouses, Max. For one thing, it's a Japanese structure, and it's also related heavily to radio broadcasting, and we'll explain that when we come back. So, I mean, when we get to that discussion. So. But let's shift gears and let's get to our must-have item of the week. This is an interesting one, Alan. Okay, I'm holding it up, and if you look at our picture on Facebook, you're gonna go, "Was this thing like found under the Titanic or something?" You know, it's
Looks like something like an ancient dentist would have used.
Yeah, it's not clean. It's not pristine. I don't know if you can see. I'm holding up to the camera right now, and there's a layer of rust on it. It didn't take much for this thing to rust.
No.
I think I left it out on a job site. It might have gotten wet because, whatever. But it's definitely a reminder that metal will rust if you don't take care of it. But it still works. I don't care. But this is a tile cutter. These are tile cutter pliers.
Right.
And I don't know how to describe this other than it functions kind of like a plier. But on one side, I'm sure if you've used any tile, you might have used a tile cutter where it's like a little metal kind of roller with a pointy, with a sharp edge. It's almost like a washer that they sharpen the edge.
Right.
And it rolls across the tile surface. It looks like it's not doing anything. It barely makes any scratch, but it's amazing. When you snap that, it'll snap down the line if you did it correctly. So this has a roller on one side, and then on the other side, on the inside, you kind of stick the tile in, and it's got a rubber kind of, I don't know what, like a rubber sort of fitting, and it pushes it against the, man, I'm not describing it well.
That's called the blocking.
You squeeze it, and it basically, so this is a freestand, this is like a handheld way of cutting tile. The reason I'm giving it an 80% endorsement is maybe I don't have a steady enough hand, but trying to push this thing in a straight line is not easy.
No.
I know you can use like a straight edge or a ruler or something, but that's the part I've never been able to push to get a really clean straight line. But when you need to just snap something, or if you're not how like you might be working around a pipe or something, you just need that rough, quick cut.
Yep.
You don't need precision. You just need to just lop off a corner of the tile. It works pretty good.
It does.
And I mean, this thing is one of these, you could drop it off a ladder and you're not gonna.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're tiling a floor, I don't know why you're on a ladder either, but
I've been in some stranger places.
Okay.
It's okay.
Do you have one of these, Alan? I'm sure you do. I mean,
I've had several of those over the years. We used to just call them, nips.
Yeah.
Yeah, just throw me the nips. And the biggest thing I found is with any form of etcher, that little spinny wheel on the backside of. Oddly, and this is one of those bizarre things, on one job, a guy was working with some basically concrete board.
Right.
And he had about a 12-foot piece he had trimmed off of something. And I have toted that thing around for probably the last 15 years because it made the world's greatest short-term straight edge for doing that kind of stuff because it's an inch thick and 2 inches wide, and it's heavy. It weighs about 4 pounds.
Right, that's a good point.
Put the tile down, put that on top of it, roll that back and forth, get your etch in, slide everything out of the way, put it in, snap, and go.
Yeah.
And that is it took a chunk of concrete to make mine work good.
Well, there you go.
So, it's kind of a 1-2 punch. So they work pretty good.
While we're talking about etching concrete, too, because I have another tile cutter. It's the kind where you put the tile in, and it's got an arm and you can drag it across. The tendency is to really push down hard because you're like, in your mind, you're like, well, I got to make an etch in this thing. Well, not necessarily, just a nice, steady, because I feel too, if you push too hard, that's when your hand slips and you get crooked and you don't get a straight line. So just do, 1 or 2 passes, and it's amazing that it actually
You're just
does
telling the
job.
brake where to go.
Right.
Yep.
So, all right. The tile cutter pliers. an 80% endorsement for me. So whatever.
It takes a certain hand to get really good at those.
Yeah, and if you're a tile person out there, I'd love to know what kind of success you've had with this tool. So, all right, well, let's shift gears. This is going to be an interesting discussion.
Hail science!
You were in our show prep. In our little group chat that we have. You said there's a company called Renco, and this is not necessarily new, but it sounds like what's new is how they're recycling, they're making some new materials, and this is a new building technique that more or less is like bringing Legos to life. I mean, where you can build a home using Lego technology, basically.
You and I keep talking about this. This is not a new topic for us. We've brought this up many, many times, but I notice that about every 6 months, we see another step forward.
Yeah.
So another company goes, hey, not only can we do what that company is doing, we're going to add this little extra bit to it.
Right.
Or we're going to take it this one little step further. Well, there's now Renco USA, and the material they're using, they're calling it Renco, which is for recycled and composite. Recycled composite is where they're getting their name from.
Gotcha.
And it is from glass, plastic, calcite dust, rosins. It's made up of a lot of building and commercial leftovers.
Question. Okay, the first thing you're making me think of is we're talking about making a building, and more or less they stack together, they form the walls, and then you put on your sheetrock and your siding and everything, and you're good to go.
Right.
Well, if you're putting all of these materials, we're always talking about how wood and different, metal and whatever expands and contracts at a different rate. What happens when you've got all these different materials mixed together? Does it mean that it's not necessarily expanding and contracting, or does that get... You know what I mean? It's like,
well, what you're going to
this big goo.
Well, what you're going to get is the actual properties of the material, the binder.
So it's whatever glue is holding this thing together.
Right. So
that's the one
that's really the linchpin product is the actual binders, the rosins that bind all of this together and make it the product. That's the expansion and contraction rate that you're looking at.
Okay, so it would be uniform because that's basically That's the trouble is like when you mix different elements together, like we've talked about wood patch and stuff, that thing's expanding and contracting differently, so they'll separate. What you're saying here is this is starting to remind me a little of Roman concrete. It'll work together, and it's gonna
we're getting there really rapidly. Yeah. And so this idea started in Turkey a few years ago. And the biggest thing they did was a lot like the Lego brick company is they make 20, 30, 40 different shapes so that you can really get some construction out of this.
And anybody can do it,
And I'll tell you what they're building when we come back.
Yeah, this is going to be cool because, who says home construction has to be complicated? So we're going to find out how that's evolving when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
My clamps!
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Yeah, nothing worse than rusted clamps, man. That's a dispiriting experience. I don't disagree. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show. There's 2 feeds you can use. You can go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page and check out the show. 2/3 of the show. Alan and I are on the camera, and you can see a little bit of the studio. And then also, while you're on social media, scoot on over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, like the page and share the page, and check out the posts we've made over there. So in a minute, we're going to get back to our discussion because there's a company called Renco that's got really interesting technology in terms of home building that is really making it more mainstream. It's going to make it's repurposing, recycling. It's got a good business model, and we hope they're going to be successful. So we're going to get back to that discussion in a minute. But speaking of successful, let's talk about our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling, because he's got a successful business operation. I mean, or I guess you could say business model. He basically took all of the things he's good at and put them into one focused purpose. And here we have Big M Roofing and Remodeling. They're all about the exterior protection of your home, from roofing to gutters to siding to windows. And of course, we always love to showcase. Well, for one thing, it works. It has to work harmoniously. You want your gutters properly installed, and that's going to protect your roof, and it's also going to protect your siding and your windows and everything. But we always lean in heavily to his roofing expertise because, for one thing, he's a GAF Master Elite installer. They are always on the cutting edge of roofing technology, to the point where they offer roofing systems that have a lifetime transferable warranty, which is, that says something about the quality of the product and how well functioning they are. Jay is also a former insurance agent, which is really critical because he uses that expertise to help you sort of navigate the process. If you're not sure, you might have damage to your roof, or you might have some damage to the outside of your home that is actually covered by your homeowner's insurance. But most of us wouldn't know. We don't know what to look for. It's like, but he does. And so you get Jay over there, do a free consultation. And if there's any damage that is covered by your homeowner's insurance, that's going to save you thousands of dollars. And Allan and I have benefited from that. We both had our roofs replaced exactly that way. And if not, you're going to at least have a comprehensive understanding of what's going on with your roof. Maybe it just needs a repair. Maybe it needs a replacement. Also, if it does and you want to finance, Jay's got a relationship with 30 lenders, and it's really cool how fast it is. You can qualify. I think it's less than 2 minutes. You type in some basic information, and you're probably going to qualify for several lenders, and then you look at the terms and decide which terms work best for you. So Jay is when he shows up on a job, you're filled with confidence. It's exciting. He makes the job site fun. I always like that when you're on a job site with a contractor. That makes it an enjoyable experience, because that's the kind of energy you want. So get in touch with Jay, and he wants you to contact them directly. You can call them at 901-484-5645. And we've got some pretty big football games coming up. Call them in the middle of those games just to irritate them. No, but get in touch with him anytime. And you can also go to his website, bigmroofingandremodeling.com. Well, before the break, Allan's been telling us about this. We've brought you these stories before. Mm-hmm. I don't know how mainstream. I don't know how widespread. The technology is still developing, but the basic concept is, you're talking about a company called Renco, where they're taking everything. They're taking bottles. They're taking plastic, old scraps of wood. They're taking everything, and they're making a composite into something almost comparable to like a Lego brick of different sizes. And you say, you know what? I'm going to build a house, or I'm going to build a room addition, or I'm going to build a warehouse for my stuff. And you make it out of these. You get your 9 buddies over there. You stack together a house in a couple of days, right? And then, you still have to put the siding and windows on, but that's a pretty quick. That's got to be a lot more efficient.
Well, their first big project in the U.S. is a 96-unit apartment building.
Oh, so they're swinging for the fences right out of the gate.
We're not building a garage. We're not starting with an outbuilding. We're going right in for an apartment complex.
Wow.
96 buildings. And get this, they're doing it in Palm Springs.
Okay, now.
So that means it has to meet all of the hurricane specifications.
I was going to say, because, is it, how tall is this thing? Is this a big, are they
it's
going
to be 3 stories.
Okay, so it's spread out, so it's not like they're going straight up, but still, it's a 3-story structure. Yeah. In theory, though, one thing I had asked about the materials, you said, I guess whatever the bonding material on this is got to be pretty heavy duty to be able to support that kind of weight. So,
it's also the salt, the wind, the water, the pressure, the sun. So, this is a durable, very durable product. So, like you've said we've been investigating Roman concrete ever since you and I got on the air.
Yeah.
We have talked about 3D building. We've talked about additive manufacturing. So all of these technologies are all kind of colliding around the recycling world, and we're getting more and more efficient ways of building something in a simpler manner. Because there really isn't anything simpler than playing with Legos.
Well, the thing about it, too, I'm picturing this because, okay, well, if you frame a house, you wind up with, you got your joists and your rafters. Well, you have to fill that with insulation. You have to, well, this to me seems like, for one thing, the way you talked about 3D printing, I'm imagining these things are probably pretty exact. They're all probably exactly the same size. So snapping them together, you're going to have very little gaps in between. And they're probably going to be, the insulation is going to be built into the brick. So literally, what I'm envisioning is you put the brick down, then you put the siding on the outside of the house, and you put the sheetrock on the inside of your house and call it a day, right? I mean,
you're pretty close. Now, the other thing is, because they can make any shape they want, don't think this just looks like a box.
Oh, no, I'm picturing
this.
You can make it decorative.
All they can basically do anything they want.
Right.
Within the parameters of keeping everything uniform enough so that it's quick and easy. Basically, they built this thing in 20% less time with 11 people.
Right. That's the thing. It would cut down on labor costs a lot.
So how much less did it cost to build a hurricane-stable building?
Yeah.
And and I find that to be a big thing. All right, so we're in Memphis. We're not exactly worried about hurricanes. However, we are an earthquake zone.
Yeah.
And we do have some pretty good thunderstorms. And occasionally we get a tornado.
Yeah.
So if you're already built to these higher standards,
there's nothing wrong with overbuilding, as you've always said.
There's no law against overbuilding a little bit. So it's very exciting every time we look at this because, well, the windows in your home versus the windows I just installed in the house I'm building.
Yep.
They look similar, but you and I both know they are worlds apart. There's 60 years of technology difference.
Oh, yeah. Double paned and all
the double paned, the way the windows are hung, how they're going to be installed, the materials that the framing around it is made of is 60 years more advanced than what you have.
Right.
So in a relatively short period of time, we're watching these technologies get better, faster, cheaper, and more reliable.
Yeah. It's funny because it's funny how some things with technology, it just simplifies everything. There's nothing written that, you can't build your own house. Where is it written that it has to only be, a complicated process and everything? It's funny. I mean, we're all carrying around, we're carrying around devices in our pocket where you could shoot video, edit it, post it on. You can almost make a movie on your own, 50 years ago, you would have had to have a lot of expensive equipment. You would have had to go study filmmaking in college or something. Well, now technology's made it where any of us can do that. I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, but
all right. Well, let's put it in perspective. You have in your smartphone more technology than the world possessed putting men on the moon.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So,
that thing was the size of giant rooms and everything. Yeah.
So, to kind of give you perspective how the technology of what you and I just do every day, the changes that we've had in something as simple as joint compound or paint or caulk or building materials is drastically changing, and I think it's changing for the better.
Well, what I like too is you're not taking. Let's talk about the other side of it. You're taking basically garbage and you're repurposing it instead of incinerating it. You're kind of grinding it up, turning it into a building material, and using it. So
and locking it back up again.
So sounds pretty interesting. We'll be following Renco's business with great interest. So, all right. Well, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar Memphis. We're going to take a quick break with our great moment, and then we're going to come back with our great moments in building history, talking about the Tokyo Skytree.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
We have radon coming from below. We have asbestos in the ceilings. These are silent killers.
You are the silent killer.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Just put some duct tape over it. It'll be fine, Toby. Don't worry about it.
There you go.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show. There's 2 platforms you can use, the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we also invite you to visit us on social media at Tool Talk Radio on our Facebook page, and like the page and share the page and check it out. So in a minute, we're going to get to our great moments in building history. A couple things real quick. If you're just tuning in, you might not realize we were discussing something very interesting. Max bought a pair of tactical shoelaces for $27, something like that, Max.
That's correct.
And these things can work as a fishing line, a weapon, or I don't know. You can use it. You can start fires with it. I was just thinking of John McClane from Die Hard. You know how he took his shoes off and everything. What if he had a chance to take his shoelaces? What could John McClane have done with tactical shoelaces? That might have ended the problem in 20 minutes or so. We wouldn't have had a movie. He would have solved the whole thing. Hans Gruber would have been
He'd have used those detonators a lot sooner.
I don't know. So anyway, okay. It was just a thought. But in a minute, like I said, we're going to get to our great moments in building history. But Alan, you wanted to remind people of kind of what's going on with ToolTalkRadio.com.
I want to say hello to our listeners in Norway and Spain.
Now, Spain.
Welcome to the internet, y'all.
They've got some beautiful architecture.
Oh, my gosh. It's just, I love getting the little reports that kind of tells you, how many downloads did you get?
Yeah.
Where were they? And, we've got, Great Britain and Australia and Canada. And, every so often you come across there and, you'll see Japan. And
New Zealand, you said.
New Zealand's a big one. I hope all of our Kiwis are doing great down there right now. A couple of things. Guys, send us a message. Send us a picture. We would love to see your architecture, your building, and your projects.
What you're dealing with, yeah.
And, don't forget that you can always take us with you. We are a full podcast on both Spotify and YouTube. So if you do, pop in, look us up, Tool Talk Radio, and like and subscribe. Man, those subscriptions do a lot for, as they like to say, the algorithm.
They do, yeah.
They help other people find us.
Yeah, and if you're so inclined, give us a 5-star review.
Oh,
all that stuff helps, and it's interesting because then it's like that's how you wind up coming up on somebody who's in Japan listening to that they get the suggestion on their algorithm. So yeah, it's cool. Hey, while we're talking about that, let's find out what's going on with Dark Oak Media this week as well. So,
well, Dark Oak Media has been of one of my favorite topics, the food dude.
Yeah, we know that. Gosh.
So
that's all we would talk about if you had your way. This would be the food dude 2-hour,
There is nothing wrong with the kitchen and cooking. This week, everybody kind of went a little crazy for mashed potato pancakes.
Yeah, I
so
heard.
that is our big podcast of the week going on at Dark Oak Media.
Okay, yeah. So if you want to find out more, there's a lot more on there that Alan's not discussing, but darkoakmedia.com. Check it out. Mm-hmm. So, all right, very good. Well, Max, hit it, man.
And now, great moments in building history.
Now, Max, you brought us this suggestion, and it seems like it's very timely. And we didn't really explain it much when we were teasing it, but we're talking about the Tokyo Sky Tower, the Skytree, which is an interesting name.
Correct. And here's some interesting stats for you. The Tokyo Skytree is the tallest tower in the world. I know the Burj Khalifa is technically the tallest structure in the world, but it doesn't necessarily qualify as a tower or a freestanding structure, so to say.
Yeah, we posted a picture of this on Facebook, and if you want to Google it, it's easy to find. But it looks like a building, but it's not, right? I mean, it's a tower.
It's a tower, but its main purpose is, people go up there to see, but it's also a broadcasting tower for television and for the holiday, radio.
Right. So it's, and it looks like it would have a wide range. This thing is massive.
Well, it's 634 meters high, am I correct, Max?
Ooh, and I have a very fun fact about that height.
Okay.
This is the opportunity for me to nerd out on my Japanese.
Okay.
And that's because the reason they chose the height of 634 meters is because when you use the characters in Japanese for 634, they spell 6, which is mu, 3, which is sa, and then 4, which is shi. And that stands for Musashi, which is the old area name of the region where the Tokyo Skytree stands today.
Now that is interesting because it looks it looks like the perfect height for what they're doing, but they chose that height. That's very interesting.
And I'm going to do a little throwback to an earlier structures we have saluted, especially the Eiffel Tower. Because as you look at this thing, you can definitely see that it is the godchild or the grandchild of the Eiffel Tower.
It tapers up. Yep.
It is a very similar construction. Of course, it's a little more advanced. It's got some computer design and everything in it.
It's got a pagoda sort of style to it as well, which is an homage to more ancient Japanese structures as well.
It looks very nice. It looks cool at night, too. It's lit really well.
Lit up. It looks like a spaceship about to take off.
Hey,
now it is also, I want to point out, it is also a viewing platform.
It is, yeah.
You can go up and view this. We actually have the pyramid here in Memphis. And for those of you that haven't seen it, we have a gargantuan...
Right on the water.
Right down there on the river, we have a gargantuan steel-skinned pyramid that is owned by the Bass Pro Shops. And they have a observation deck nowhere near as high as the one on the Tokyo Skytree. But if you go up there and you walk out on that viewing deck, it is stunning how far you can see.
Oh, yeah.
And
you're
beautiful.
2,000 feet up or more.
So when you look at like the Seattle Sky Needle or you look at something like the Skytree here in Tokyo, these things let you see, with the Japanese one, it is honestly a fair size piece of Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And unfortunately, it doesn't trump the size of Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is still kind of the center of attention in the land of Tokyo.
Well, that's cool. Okay. It's allowed.
It's cool. Wait, is Mount Fuji a volcano? Is it volcanic? It sure looks volcanic, the way it's shaped and everything. But anyway, the reason I ask, you don't know, Alan? Or?
Well...
It's a stratovolcano, an active stratovolcano.
It's not a volcano like we would think Mount St. Helens, but it is volcanic in source.
Well, I asked that for a practical reason because you were talking about things that we've discussed in the past. Well, Max, one of the structures we've discussed in the past are some of these old wooden structures made like 1,400 years ago that are still standing because they utilized a certain earthquake let's face it, there's seismic activity in Tokyo. There's volcanic activity, I guess. And you're building the world's tallest tower. You better have a way to make sure that thing doesn't fall over.
And it's also being built on an area with a lot of seismic activity, oddly enough. They chose one of the more active parts of Tokyo to build their structure, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking, because, Max, what was the structure you brought to us, 6 or 8 months ago about... I think it was a monastery that they built, and it's technology that they're still utilizing in the Skytree.
Exactly, that's exactly the thing that they were using. But one thing that was particularly fascinating about this old pagoda that you just mentioned was that it has like a central shaft that they use for earthquake prevention called the Shinbashira, which is like a central pillar. Although today, rather than using a giant thing of wood, because you probably couldn't get a wood that high, they use a giant concrete tube in the center. But they use a lot of other modern technologies and innovations to kind of assist it as well. So it's not just the concrete Shinbashira. It also has these mass dampeners and everything, and also like these like little things that are kind of like braces that hold the pillar in place that allow it to sway. They actually allow for motion, which is kind of good.
That's what I mean. This thing flexes and moves a lot, which is all. If you're going to build skyscrapers these days, they're going to move. They better be able to move, or or it's not going to stay.
I think that's the surprising thing to some of us more terrestrial people.
Right.
We don't think of our homes as moving that much, but if you live in a 2-story house, it moves with the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Your home shrinks, contracts, moves in small ways, but when you begin to magnify that, it's kind of like you're driving down the road and you're 1 inch off center.
Right.
Well, over the mile that it took you to go from here to the grocery store and back, that 1 inch really doesn't matter.
Well,
however, now if we're going to make it a journey of 1,000 miles, you're going to miss the state that you're aiming for because that 1 inch is going to continue to grow.
Right.
So when you're looking at a 2,000-foot tower, the technology on this has to be precise.
And kind of, you were asking me the name of the structure we mentioned a while back. It was called the Horyuji. It was built in 607, and it translates to the Temple of the Flourishing Way.
And it's a tall wooden structure that's still standing. I mean, that alone is, impressive that they had that much knowledge of, fighting against earthquakes back, that far.
These technologies have a lot to do with modern home building, and especially I remember when they were building the Mall of Memphis. It actually had slip plates in it for seismic activity.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know what a slip plate is.
Well,
so it's allowing for movement, basically.
It allowed the second story to move separate from the first story.
And then also with regards to extra protection, too, they also have these rubber suspension things at the very bottom of the pillar, too, rather than just it being buried in the ground. I think it's just pretty impressive. And not only that, but coming back, it might be interesting to note that this structure was built from the top down rather than the bottom up.
Yeah, maybe we can discuss that because that part was confusing. So I don't know how you do that, but no, it's a really interesting structure, the Tokyo Skytree, and we're going to continue to talk about it when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Do you know what happens to a butter-based frosting after 6 decades in a poorly ventilated English basement?
I guess I hadn't...
Well, I have a feeling what you are about to go through is punishment enough.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Don't let anybody fool you. It just adds a lot of flavor, and what do we call it? It adds character to the cake.
It's called cheese.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Yeah, let's not find out what happens to it. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. There's just enough time for a quick, maybe a text at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to watch the show. You can go to the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's Facebook page or the News Talk 98.9 The Roar's X page. And we also invite you to visit our social media at Tool Talk Radio on Facebook and check out the posts we've made over there. So in a minute, we're going to get back to our Great Moments in Building History discussion, which is the Tokyo Skytree. I don't think we mentioned it. It was they started construction in 2008 and completed it in 2012 pretty efficiently, too. I mean, it seems like, the way they built it was they didn't waste any time. And Max is going to explain in a minute that they, in some cases, went from the top down. Before we do that, though, I just want to let me get my shameless plug in the way, Alan. So, I am a contractor. I like to build things out of wood I like to do remodeling. I like projects that are interesting. So I prefer, somehow I wind up working outside a lot. I like to build decks or patio covers or room additions and things like that. But I'll also do interior trim work. I mean, I studied classical furniture design. I know how to do all that stuff, so I like to do it. But I really enjoy my carpentry work. And I try to what I do is I try to keep the overhead low. I don't have all the bells and whistles. When I pull up, you're going to go, that's a very ordinary truck. Or that, if you see how I dress, you'll know that I keep the overhead low. There's a reason for that. I put all my emphasis in craftsmanship and good customer service. So I would love to work with you here in the Mid-South if you've got any projects that need to be done. I encourage you to call me directly. You can get in touch with me at 901-921-7105 or go to my website if you want to see what's up there. There's a lot of unique things up there, too. beyond just woodworking, go to thorshomes.com. They're both plural. I couldn't get Thor. I'll be honest. I wanted a different one, but all the cool names with Thor are taken, all the domain names, Alan. So
that happens.
thorshomes.com. But Max, you were talking about something. We're talking about the Tokyo Skytree, which is it's the biggest tower it's the biggest. What did you call it? It's the biggest tower in the world, not the
freestanding structure.
Freestanding structure, but it is a radio and television broadcast tower, which obviously must have a big reach. And but you talked about in some cases they were building from the top down. I mean, obviously they didn't start at the top because they'd be floating in the air. But
from my understanding, it seems like before the observation platform would have been built first, and then maybe the frame around it, because there's the central shaft. Where that main pillar is. I suppose what you would do is you would build that first, and then you would build the frame around it, because it has sort of like a Eiffel Tower-esque sort of frame around it.
Yeah, it tapers down real nice. So, okay. I guess I know it to a degree. They were still working down on the ground, but they didn't want to waste any time. They didn't want to say, okay, today we're building the first floor, and tomorrow we're building the whatever. They were building that simultaneously with constructing things up top. They were kind of going to, I guess they met in the middle. I don't know.
Well, it was actually several different phases, but the main phase was getting to the observation deck and then building above that.
Right.
So the tower was functional long before it was finished.
Okay. Oh, so they were able to use it as a broadcast. Because I guess what I'm wondering when it comes to broadcasting, I don't understand it. Is it just a big metal? Is that what gives it its broadcast ability? Or I'm sure there's technology involved.
You have the antenna and antenna technology to that, but then again, you also have height, especially when it comes to radio and analog broadcasting, of the height and distance that it is unimpeded, aka line of sight.
Nothing's hidden.
So the higher the antenna, the greater the area with less interference that you can cover.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I also wanted to mention, too, another thing that makes this a lot more complex is it also houses an aquarium on the 5th and 6th floors.
I wonder how big of an aquarium we're talking about. Because it is, I mean, it's a tower, but they do have some tourism things in there. So
yeah, exactly.
This is not a small structure. This is a massive structure. So they have basically an aquatic zoo on those 2 floors.
And then in addition to, there's also like a mall complex around it, which is called like the Sumida Solamachi Mall.
This is
the Tokyo
random.
Solamachi complex.
This is random, and I'm going to ask Alan because he seems like he would actually have an answer to this. If you've got a bunch of fish right there I mean, we're talking the most powerful probably broadcast tower in the world.
Right.
What are those radio and TV waves doing to the fish? Is that going to freak them out, or are you going
to create superfish?
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
No, because remember the energy core, the broadcast tip is 2,000 feet above you.
Yeah, but doesn't it come from the ground?
Well, you're just passing electrical power through. You've got that insulated and all of that, so you're not.
Well, I mean, we all have.
You're not bathing them in electrons any worse or any more or any less than the people working there.
Well, I mean, we know Japan prides themselves on Godzilla and Mothra and everything. Are we creating a situation here where this could be the next super, reptile or super fish?
No, I think we're gonna create the next super kaijus in other ways.
Okay, so this isn't a threat. No, we don't have to worry about that.
We're not worried about the goldfish that ate Tokyo.
Okay, it's a cool construction, and I would imagine if you're gonna visit Tokyo, you definitely want to make this, make a point of getting up to the Skytree. It looks like you said, Al. I mean, you're 2,000 feet up in the air, and it's the skyline of Tokyo is so interesting anyway because I mean, back in the distance, you got mountains, you got Mount Fuji there and everything in the middle of. It's a massive city, though, man. It's one of the biggest cities in the world.
Yes,
right? Tokyo is.
Yeah, Tokyo is absolutely immense.
This is sort of so. I had a kind of a side thing that came out of this, but
okay.
We always talk about the fact that if you to be a homeowner, I think this ties in with home improvement. You always want to be aware of your place in the galaxy or in the world because it just makes you more informed. Well, we were talking about how. Especially in some place like Tokyo, you have to be conscientious of seismic activity and things like that. And recently, we had these huge waves hitting California and everything. And from what I understood, it came from the problem started in Taiwan. They had typhoons that made it all the way across the ocean and affected them. And you told me something interesting. You said that the Skytree had in 2011 they underwent a pretty big earthquake and it stood tall and it made it. Well, I remember in 2011, the Mississippi River flooded really badly. It flooded all the way up there, and I was like, I wonder if there's. I was asking you, is there a connection? Could something that happened in Japan affect the water cycle here in the Mid-South? I don't know. I mean,
to answer that, I'm going to say surfers everywhere watch the storm systems in Antarctica.
Interesting.
Because a big old storm come blowing up out of Antarctica equals some truly killer gnarly waves in Hawaii or at any number of islands around the world. So it's impossible to say that there is a cause and effect, but it is possible to say that one thing always affects something else.
Well, we're on a big globe connected together.
As this storm moves across the country, it's going to have far-reaching effects far past just the areas that it passes over.
And if I'm remembering correctly, Tokyo is actually on a similar latitude to Memphis itself. And another thing to note of interest, like back when I was in college, one of my professors actually said that the weather in Tokyo was fairly similar to the weather in Memphis, especially during like the summer times, although minus like the level of earthquakes that they get over there.
I don't know. I mean, there's something to be said for that because, I mean, this interconnected notion, I mean, we're all spinning through the galaxy on a spaceship called Earth.
To quote Michael Crichton, chaos theory, butterfly flaps his wings in one city and somebody else gets a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
So is it cause and effect? No. But is it worthy of paying attention to? Absolutely. Because what happens somewhere else generally has a way of making it to us at some point.
Seems like it. It's just interesting, man. But I don't know. This was a cool one, Max. This was definitely worth, folks, if you want to go down an interesting rabbit hole on YouTube, this is an interesting construction. And I don't know that there's a whole lot of downside. I haven't heard any horror stories about the Tokyo Skytree. It seems like it was a pretty cool thing. It's functioning well. It's holding up, and it's doing what it set out to do. So, well, you guys, that sound means we're out of time. Another episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can. So on behalf of my buddy, Alan Gilbreth, and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.